Here's something that came up with a student last week that I haven't been able to stop thinking about.
Oh, this sounds good.
She said to me, I understand that I shouldn't be attached to outcomes, but if I stop caring about results, won't I just become lazy? Won't everything fall apart?
That's such an honest question. And actually, welcome everyone to Immemorabili.
I'm Drake.
And I'm Holly. For anyone new, that's Immemorabili, which means from time beyond memory. We explore ancient wisdom traditions through the most ancient anamnetic order of Trikala.
A complete system for transformation. Philosophy, practical psychology, embodied practice. All three working together.
And today we're tackling one of the most misunderstood teachings in all of philosophy. The Bhagavad Gita's concept of karma yoga, action without attachment.
Which sounds like a contradiction, doesn't it? How can you act with full commitment while simultaneously not caring about what happens?
That's exactly the paradox Krishna presents to Arjuna on the battlefield. And it turns out it's not a contradiction at all. It's actually the secret to doing your best work without destroying yourself in the process.
So let's get into it.
We need to start with the scene because the context matters enormously here.
It really does. The Bhagavad Gita opens on a battlefield. The great war of Kurukshetra is about to begin. Two massive armies face each other, and on one side, in a chariot positioned between the opposing forces, stands Arjuna, one of the greatest warriors of his age.
And he's paralyzed.
Completely frozen. Because when he looks across at the enemy army, he sees his own family, his teachers, his cousins, people he grew up with, people who held him as a child, people he loves.
The Gita tells us that his bow, the famous Gandhava, slips from his hands. His skin burns. He can't stand upright. He tells his charioteer, who happens to be Krishna, an avatar of Vishnu, that he'd rather let himself be killed unarmed than fight against his own kin.
And this is where it gets interesting. Because Arjuna isn't just experiencing ordinary fear, he's facing a genuine moral dilemma. Not a puzzle with a clever answer, but a situation where every choice seems wrong.
On one hand, he has his duty as a warrior, his dharma. He's a kshatriya, a member of the warrior caste. His entire purpose, his social function, his identity as a person in this world is bound up in fighting when the righteous call to battle comes.
On the other hand, these are his relatives. His grandfather Bhishma, who taught him archery. His teacher Drona, who made him the warrior he is. How can he kill them? What kind of victory could possibly be worth that price?
And notice that this isn't an abstract philosophical puzzle being discussed in a comfortable academy. Arjuna is standing there, right now, with armies waiting. Conch shells have already sounded. He has to decide. He has to act.
Or not act, which is also a choice.
Right, and that's actually Krishna's first point. Arjuna thinks he can avoid the dilemma by refusing to fight, by stepping back, by washing his hands of the whole thing.
But Krishna says, essentially, nice try. You can't escape action through inaction. Even choosing not to act is itself an action. Even standing still is a choice with consequences. You're already participating in this moment. The only question is how.
There's a line in the 3rd chapter where Krishna says that no one can remain even for a moment without performing action. The very nature of existence, Prakriti, compels everyone to act, whether they acknowledge it or not.
Think about that for a moment. Even sitting perfectly still, you're breathing. Your heart is beating. Your mind is moving. You're making choices about where to direct attention, what to think about, how to interpret what's happening. Action is inescapable. It's woven into the fabric of being alive.
So the question isn't whether to act. We don't have that choice. The question is how to act, with what quality of consciousness. And this is where karma yoga enters.
The core teaching comes in chapter 2, verse 47. It's probably the most famous line in the entire Gita, and it's been translated countless ways.
How would you translate it?
You have the right to action alone, never to its fruits. Let not the fruits of action be your motive, nor let your attachment be to inaction.
That's the whole teaching condensed into one sentence, isn't it?
It really is. Karmani evadikaraste, ma phaleshu kadachana. You have the right to work. You don't have the right to the results of that work. Your job is to do your job. What happens after that isn't yours to control.
But this is exactly where people get confused because it sounds like Krishna is saying, don't care about outcomes. Don't have goals. Don't try to achieve anything. Just do whatever and be passive about the results.
And that's not what he's saying at all.
Not even close.
Look at the context. He's talking to a warrior who's about to fight a war with real stakes, real enemies, real consequences. Does anyone seriously think Krishna is saying, go into battle, but don't try to win? That would be absurd. It would be a recipe for defeat and death.
The teaching isn't about lowering your standards or becoming passive or not caring. It's about where you place your psychological investment, where your sense of self lives.
Exactly. There's a huge difference between caring about outcomes and being attached to outcomes. They feel similar from the inside, but they produce completely different results.
Say more about that distinction, because I think it's the key to everything.
Caring means you take something seriously. You want it to go well, you work hard, you bring your full attention and effort. You do everything in your power to produce a good result.
Attachment means your sense of self, your well-being, your peace of mind, your fundamental okayness as a person is dependent on that outcome happening. If it doesn't happen, you're not just disappointed, you're devastated, you're diminished, you're somehow less.
Caring says, I want this to succeed, so I'll give it everything I have. Attachment says, if this doesn't succeed, I'm a failure. My worth is on the line here. Everything depends on this.
Those are completely different psychological states. They might look the same from the outside. Two people working hard on something, but the inner experience is worlds apart.
And they produce completely different qualities of action.
How so?
When you're attached to an outcome, you're operating from a kind of desperation. There's fear underneath. Fear of failure. Fear of not being good enough. Fear of what people will think. Fear of being exposed as inadequate.
And that fear distorts everything. It makes you tense. It makes you second guess yourself. It makes you focus on all the wrong things.
You start thinking about the end result instead of the present moment. You're up in your head imagining the victory celebration or catastrophizing about the humiliation of defeat, instead of paying attention to what's actually in front of you right now, the very thing you need to do well.
I've seen this so many times in my own life. When I'm anxious about how something will turn out, I actually perform worse. My attention is split between the task and my worry about the task. I'm not fully present.
The ancient archers knew this. There's a teaching that appears in various forms across cultures. To hit the target, you must forget the target. Your job is to draw the bow correctly, to feel the string tension, to sense the wind, to release cleanly. The arrow's flight after release is not your concern.
It's counterintuitive, isn't it? You'd think focusing intensely on the goal would help you achieve it. That's what we're taught. Eyes on the prize and all that.
But the goal isn't where the action happens. The action happens here, now, in this moment of choice and effort. That's where your power actually lives. The future is imagination. The present is reality. And you can only act in reality.
Let's talk about how this applies to modern life. Because most of us aren't facing actual battlefields with armies and weapons.
No, but we face our own versions of Kurukshetra every day. The Monday morning meeting where your project might be cancelled, the difficult conversation with your partner, the creative project you've been working on for months, the job interview, the presentation, the test results.
And in each of those situations, we're often paralyzed by the same thing that paralyzed Arjuna. Fear of what might happen, attachment to specific outcomes, the weight of what it all means about us.
Think about modern work culture for a moment. The entire system is designed to maximize attachment. You're constantly measured, evaluated, ranked against your peers. Your bonus depends on hitting targets. Your job security depends on performance reviews. Your advancement depends on exceeding expectations.
And we internalize all of that. We start to believe that our worth as human beings, not just as employees, but as people, is tied to our productivity, our achievements, our results, our metrics.
Which creates this constant background anxiety. Even when things are going well, you're worried about the next quarter, the next review, whether you can sustain this level of performance, whether you'll be found out as someone who got lucky rather than someone who's genuinely excellent.
The Stoics called this being enslaved to externals. You've handed control of your inner state, your peace of mind, your sense of who you are, to things that are fundamentally outside your control.
And the results of your actions are ultimately outside your control. You can control your preparation, your effort, your attention, your attitude, the quality of your work in this moment. But you cannot control how other people respond. You cannot control the market. You cannot control whether you get lucky or unlucky. You cannot control whether someone else has a better day than you.
This is what creates burnout, isn't it? It's not just working hard. Lots of people work hard and thrive. It's working hard while carrying the psychological weight of outcomes you can't actually determine.
I think that's exactly right. Burnout isn't mere exhaustion. You can recover from exhaustion. Burnout is a kind of spiritual crisis. You've poured everything you have into achieving certain results, and either you've failed and feel worthless, or you've succeeded and discovered it didn't actually make you happy. Either way, the project of achieving your way to peace has collapsed.
Either way, something fundamental is broken.
Either way, attachment has poisoned the well.
So what does non-attached action actually look like in practice? Can you paint a picture?
Let me give you a concrete example. Say you're preparing for a job interview.
Okay, I'm listening.
The attached approach, you need this job. Your identity is riding on it. You spend the night before imagining how great it will be when you get it, or catastrophizing about what happens if you don't. You walk in nervous, hyper aware of every word you say, trying desperately to impress, monitoring the interviewer's reactions for signs of approval or disapproval.
Exhausting just to think about.
And the non attached approach?
Tell me,
You prepare thoroughly because that's your responsibility. You research the company. You think carefully about what you can offer. You get clear on your own values and what you're actually looking for in a role. You anticipate likely questions and consider your honest answers.
so far that sounds exactly the same. You're still preparing seriously.
The difference is internal. It's invisible from the outside. You walk in knowing that you've done your preparation. That part is complete. Your job now is simply to show up fully, to be present in the conversation, to offer your genuine self without performance or manipulation. What they decide to do with that is their business, not yours.
You're not trying to be what you think they want. You're offering what you actually are.
And then letting go. Whatever happens, you did your part. You showed up. You were present. You offered something real. If they want that, wonderful. If they want something else, that's information too. Neither result changes who you are.
And if you don't get the position,
Then you didn't get it. Maybe they wanted something different. Maybe someone else was a better fit for what they need right now. Maybe the universe has other plans that you can't see yet. None of that changes your worth as a person. None of that means your preparation was wasted. None of that means you failed in any meaningful sense.
because the preparation wasn't for the outcome. The preparation was the practice. The preparation was you doing your dharma in that moment.
Exactly. Every moment of genuine effort is complete in itself. It doesn't need the result to validate it. The doing was the point. The outcome is just what happens next.
This connects to something else in the Gita that I find fascinating, the concept of svadharma.
Yes, your own dharma, your own particular duty, your own unique path through the world.
Krishna tells Arjuna that it's better to perform your own dharma imperfectly than to perform someone else's dharma perfectly. Even death in one's own dharma is better than success in another's.
Which is a remarkable statement when you really hear it. He's saying that the authenticity of the action, whether it's truly yours, matters more than its external appearance of success.
How do you understand svadharma in a modern context? We don't have caste assignments telling us what our predetermined duty is. Nobody hands us a script at birth.
I think it's about genuine self-knowledge. What are you actually called to? What work uses your real gifts, not the gifts you wish you had or the gifts that would be more convenient? What feels like your responsibility, your purpose, rather than something imposed from outside or borrowed from someone else's life?
So it's not about doing what you're told or what society expects. It's about discovering what's genuinely yours to do in this life.
And then doing that with full commitment, regardless of whether anyone notices, regardless of whether it leads to success as the world measures success, regardless of whether it makes you rich or famous or admired.
There's something tremendously freeing about that perspective.
Enormously freeing. Most of our anxiety comes from trying to control things we can't control, or trying to be something we're not, or trying to walk someone else's path. Svadharma says, be what you are. Do what's genuinely yours. The rest isn't your concern.
We should talk about flow states because there's fascinating modern research that essentially validates everything we've been discussing.
Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi's work.
Yes, he spent decades studying what he called optimal experience. Those moments when people are so absorbed in what they're doing that time seems to disappear. When the activity becomes almost effortless despite being challenging.
Athletes call it being in the zone. Musicians talk about the music playing itself, moving through them rather than being produced by them. Writers describe the words flowing without effort, as if they're taking dictation from somewhere.
And what Csikszentmihalyi discovered was that these peak experiences share certain structural characteristics. Clear goals, moment to moment, immediate feedback, so you know how you're doing. A balance between the challenge of the task and your skill level, not too easy, not too hard.
But here's what's crucial for our purposes. One of the defining characteristics of flow is the loss of self-consciousness. The inner critic goes quiet.
You stop thinking about yourself, you stop worrying about how you're being perceived, you stop calculating outcomes and managing impressions.
You become completely absorbed in the activity itself. The action and the actor merge into one process. There's no separation between you and what you're doing.
That's karma yoga. That's exactly the state Krishna is describing. Full engagement without the burden of self-reference.
It's the state that becomes possible when you release attachment to results. When you're not spending mental energy on anxiety about the future or evaluation of yourself, that energy becomes available for total presence in the action itself.
And here's the beautiful paradox. This state of not caring about outcomes actually produces better outcomes. Athletes perform measurably better in flow. Artists create their best work. People solve problems more creatively.
Not because they're trying harder in the conventional sense, but because they're not obstructing themselves anymore. They've stopped getting in their own way.
The attachment itself was the obstacle all along. The trying too hard, the caring too much in the wrong way.
There's another dimension to karma yoga that we haven't touched yet. The idea of acting for the welfare of the world. What the Gita calls lokasamgraha.
Yes, it's not purely about personal liberation.
Krishna tells Arjuna that even if he personally had nothing to gain, even if he had already achieved everything worth achieving, he should still act for the welfare of others. The wise person acts without selfish attachment, but also without selfish motivation.
So it's not just about your own psychological freedom from anxiety, it's about service, about contributing to something beyond yourself.
This is where karma yoga connects to the whole Indian tradition of Siva. Selfless service without expectation of return.
Working not because you'll get something out of it, but because the work needs to be done, because others will benefit, because you can.
Gandhi built his entire approach to political action on exactly this principle. He called it karma yoga in practice. You do what's right according to your understanding. You commit fully with every fiber of your being. But you release attachment to whether you personally see the fruits of that action in your lifetime.
He knew he might not live to see Indian independence. He was shot before he could witness the full unfolding of what he'd set in motion.
And he didn't let that uncertainty diminish his commitment for a single day. Because the commitment wasn't ultimately about him.
It was about something larger, something that would continue beyond his individual life.
When you're acting for something larger than yourself, the question of personal outcome becomes almost irrelevant. You're a link in a chain that extends in both directions. A participant in something that transcends your individual biography.
That's actually very close to what we do in our work at Trikala. The philosophical study, the practical psychological techniques, the embodied practices. None of it is really about achieving some final state for yourself alone.
It's about participation, about transmission. You're part of a lineage that extends back thousands of years and forward into a future you'll never see. Your practice matters not primarily because of what you personally get out of it, but because you're keeping something alive. You're receiving something precious and passing it on.
Which takes the pressure off in a strange way.
Enormously. You don't have to be perfect. You don't have to achieve enlightenment by next Tuesday. You just have to show up, do your part with sincerity, and trust that it matters in ways you can't fully see.
Let's make this really practical before we move on. How does someone actually start applying karma yoga in their daily life tomorrow?
Start with something small. Pick a task you have to do today. It could be anything. writing an email, having a conversation with a colleague, cleaning your house, running an errand.
Before you begin, pause. Just for 30 seconds. Notice any anxiety about how it will turn out. Notice any stories you're already telling yourself about what success or failure would mean.
Notice the attachment. If I do this well, then I'm competent, I'm a good person. If it goes badly, then I'm stupid, I'm worthless, everyone will judge me. Just notice that whole structure operating.
Don't try to change it yet. Don't argue with it. Just see it clearly for what it is.
Then ask yourself, what is actually mine to do here? Not what outcome do I desperately want, but what action is genuinely mine in this moment.
What can I actually control? What's within my power?
Your attention, your effort, your presence, your attitude, the quality of consciousness you bring. That's it. That's your entire domain. Everything else is beyond the boundary of your will.
So bring everything you have to that domain. Full attention on what's in front of you. Full effort appropriate to the task. Full presence in this moment of action.
And let go of the rest. Not through force or suppression, not by pretending you don't care, but through genuine recognition that the rest was never actually yours to begin with. You're releasing something you never really held.
It sounds deceptively simple when you say it like that.
It is simple, conceptually straightforward, but it's not easy. Our entire conditioning runs powerfully in the opposite direction. We're trained from childhood to fixate on outcomes, to measure ourselves by results, to stake our identity on achievement. It takes sustained practice to unlearn all of that.
Which is why it's called karma yoga. Not karma philosophy or karma insight. Yoga. A practice. A discipline. Something you return to again and again until it becomes part of who you are.
And over time, gradually, it becomes more natural. You start to notice the freedom. You start to feel viscerally the difference between attached action, which is heavy and anxious, and non-attached action, which is light and focused.
And paradoxically, you start to produce better work. Not because you're trying to produce better work, but because you're finally not obstructing yourself anymore.
The fruit comes. Krishna promises this. It just comes as a natural byproduct of right action rather than as the anxious purpose of the action.
Which is exactly what he told Arjuna would happen.
There's a beautiful parallel to all of this in the Daoist tradition. Wu Wei,
Non-action, or more precisely, non-forcing action.
the action that doesn't fight against the grain of things. The swimmer who works with the current rather than against it.
It's remarkable how this same insight appears independently across cultures. India gives us karma yoga. China gives us Wu Wei. Greece gives us the Stoic distinction between what's in our control and what isn't.
They're all pointing at the same fundamental truth from different angles. There's a way of acting that creates tension, friction, exhaustion. And there's a way of acting that flows, that accomplishes without strain.
The difference isn't in the amount of effort. Sometimes Wu Wei requires tremendous effort. The difference is in the quality of the relationship between the actor and the action.
When you're attached, you're always fighting something. Fighting against the possibility of failure. Fighting against your own doubts. Fighting against the uncertainty of outcomes.
When you're non-attached, you're collaborating with the situation, with your own capacities, with whatever wants to emerge through your action.
It sounds mystical when you put it that way.
It does. But actually, it's quite practical. Anyone who's ever been in the zone knows exactly what this feels like. The basketball player who can't miss, the musician whose fingers know where to go before the mind thinks it, the writer watching words appear on the page from somewhere beyond conscious intention.
These aren't rare mystical states available only to advanced practitioners. They're natural human capacities that get blocked by attachment and released by non-attachment.
Which means karma yoga isn't about becoming something you're not. It's about removing what's in the way of what you already are.
That's a much gentler project, actually.
Much gentler and more hopeful.
Some listener questions before we wrap up today.
Yes, we've had some wonderful messages come in recently. Let me share a few.
Please.
This first one is from Darren in California. He writes about our episode on Memento Mori from a few weeks back. He says, I tried the morning death contemplation you described, sitting with the thought that this could be my last day. But instead of feeling liberated and present like you said, I just feel anxious. I spend the rest of the day rushing around trying to accomplish as much as possible. Am I doing something wrong?
Darren, this is really common, actually. And the anxiety you're experiencing is valuable information. It's not a sign you're failing at the practice.
It's showing you what's underneath, what you might normally avoid seeing.
Exactly. If the thought, this could be my last day, creates panic and frantic activity rather than presence and peace, it means there's some way you're not yet at peace with how you're living. Some incompleteness you've been avoiding looking at. Some gap between what matters to you and how you're spending your time.
The practice isn't meant to create urgency in the sense of rushing around accomplishing tasks. That's just a different form of avoidance. It's meant to create clarity. What actually matters? What am I doing that's just noise?
Try this. Instead of, this could be my last day as a spur to frantic activity, sit with, how would I want to spend my last day? Not as a to-do list, but as a genuine inquiry into quality.
Usually the honest answer isn't accomplish as many things as possible. Usually it's something about connection, presence with people you love, doing meaningful work without hurry, actually tasting your food, actually seeing the sky.
Let the contemplation guide you toward that quality of being rather than toward panic productivity. The Stoics who practiced memento mori weren't anxious, frantic people. They were remarkably serene. The death awareness created that serenity, paradoxically.
Keep practicing, Darren. The relationship with the contemplation shifts over time. What starts as anxiety often matures into freedom.
Next one's from Priya in Cairo. She's responding to our episode on Indra's net and interconnection. She asks, if everything is truly interconnected like you described, with each part reflecting and containing the whole, does that mean boundaries are an illusion? I work as a hospice nurse, and I'm really struggling to stay compassionate without absorbing everyone's suffering into my own body. How do I reconcile we're all one with needing to protect my own well-being?
Priya, this is such an important practical question, especially given the sacred and difficult work you do.
The short answer is that recognizing interconnection doesn't mean dissolving all boundaries. Think about Indra's net itself. Each jewel reflects all the other jewels, yes, but each jewel remains a distinct jewel with its own position in the net. The reflecting doesn't erase the nodes.
In Buddhist philosophical terms, this is sometimes described as not one, not two. We're not separate in the way the isolated ego insists we are, but we're also not merged into undifferentiated oneness, where distinction disappears.
Your boundaries as a caregiver are actually a form of respect for the interconnection, not a denial of it. If you collapse completely into your patient's suffering, you can't serve them. You burn out and leave. The space between you, held with care, is actually where the healing happens.
What the interconnection teaching offers isn't boundary dissolution, it's perspective. Their suffering and your well-being aren't ultimately on opposite sides of some wall. What heals them contributes to the whole. What depletes you also diminishes what you can offer.
Maintain your practices, whatever helps you return to your own center, whatever replenishes you. In our work, we have specific techniques for exactly this challenge, working with absorbed emotional material without letting it colonize you.
The wisdom traditions never expected people to do the kind of work you do without practices of protection and restoration. That would be naive.
You're doing sacred work, Priya. The world needs hospice nurses who can sustain themselves. Thank you for what you offer.
Last one. This is from Raul in Buenos Aires, responding to our episode on the birth of philosophy. He writes, when you talked about the revolutionary shift from mythos to logos, Holly mentioned that something precious got lost in that transition, even as we gained so much. I've been thinking about what that means for how I raise my children. Should I be giving them mythology before philosophy? When is the right developmental moment to introduce rational questioning? Raul, I love that you're thinking about this in terms of parenting. That's exactly where these ideas become concrete.
It's actually a profound question about developmental stages and what consciousness needs at different ages.
I do think something real was lost when we abandoned mythological consciousness entirely as a culture. The sense of participation in something larger than ourselves. The felt connection to nature and cosmos as living realities, not dead objects. The meaning and orientation that comes from story and symbol rather than from analysis alone.
And children naturally live in what we might call mythological consciousness. The world is alive and responsive for them. Animals have intentions. Magic is plausible. The boundary between inner and outer is permeable. This isn't delusion or error. It's a developmentally appropriate way of relating to reality.
So yes, give them the myths, the fairy tales, the hero stories, the creation narratives from different cultures. Let them live inside these stories, inhabit these characters, feel these patterns. Don't rush to explain that it's just pretend or just metaphor.
The rational, analytical faculty develops naturally as the brain matures. You don't need to force it or hurry it along. It will come. What you can do is honor both capacities. Rich stories now and later when they're developmentally ready and start asking different kinds of questions, conversations about what those stories might mean on other levels.
What we're trying to do in our work is actually recover the integration that got fractured. Logos without mythos is dry, cold, and ultimately meaningless. Mythos without logos can become naive, superstitious, even dangerous. The goal is both capacities working together. Philosophical rigor married to mythological depth.
Raise them with the story's first role. Let the questioning emerge naturally when it's ready.
Wonderful question.
If you're enjoying the show, there are some simple ways to help us reach more people.
Leaving a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify genuinely makes a difference. Even just tapping 5 stars takes seconds, but it affects how new listeners discover us through the algorithms.
Or if you know someone who'd connect with this kind of exploration, send them a link to an episode you think they'd appreciate. Word of mouth is still how podcasts actually grow.
We don't have a marketing department. We just have you.
And we're genuinely grateful for that.
So, Karma Yoga.
Act fully, release completely.
It's the teaching Arjuna needed on that battlefield 3,000 years ago, and it's the teaching most of us need in our ordinary lives right now.
The battlefield of the morning commute, the battlefield of the overflowing inbox, the battlefield of family obligations, the battlefield of our own restless minds.
Do what's genuinely yours to do. Give it everything you have, and let go of what was never actually yours to control.
If this conversation raised questions for you or stirred something, we want to hear about it. Send your thoughts to podcast@maAOT.org.
We read everything that comes in, and your questions genuinely shape what we explore in future episodes.
This path Holly and I are walking together. The 15 pillars explored over a lifetime. The philosophical study combined with practical psychological tools and embodied physical practice. It's all designed to make teachings like karma yoga actually livable. Not just ideas you think about and forget, but capacities you develop in your body and being. And it's open and available to anyone willing to learn.
The Bhagavad Gita sits at the heart of our Vedantic pillar. Students spend real time with this text, not just reading through it once, but working with it, applying it to their specific life circumstances, slowly becoming what it teaches.
That's the difference between philosophy as information you consume and philosophy as transformation you undergo.
If you want to know more about how we actually work with students, the website is maaoot.org.
Ab Immemorabili, from time beyond memory.
The wisdom you're seeking has always been within you.
Keep practicing.
Keep questioning.
Until next time.